On behalf of Light of Berotsana and all the respected Rinpoches and Khenpos, teachers, translators, and the Sangye community who have joined us, it is our great honor to welcome Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche and thank him for coming here to join us today to speak and inspire us during this historical conference as guests who are translators of the Buddha Dharma. Who could be better than Rinpoche to encourage us because of his wisdom perspective and his many years of hands-on experience here in the West. Rinpoche has dedicated himself to making the Dharma accessible in the English language. And what an amazing job he's doing. Thank you, Rinpoche.
Well, I would like to start my encouragement with paying respect to Allah Dzigar Rinpoche and Khandro Rinpoche, and also with Khandro Rinpoche who are present here, and many of the familiar faces who I know have been in the Dharma in general, and particularly working for the transplantation of the Dharma in the West, in a new whole world from the Tibetan branch of the Buddhism. Like Khandro Rinpoche has been working in this field much, much longer than I have, and Khandro Rinpoche as well. I was most probably playing around while they were all in the full swing of benefiting beings, and also Allah Dzigar Rinpoche, whom I consider as a saint of this century. From our tradition, there isn't anyone who I would really think is a greater embodiment of the teachings as well as also the knowledge. In short, I think in the modern days, he is equivalent to the saint of old times. So in front of them, for me to say anything is a little bit of intimidating as well as also embarrassing. But nonetheless, I take this great honor to just be here and also to really express my appreciation. My appreciation really mainly for many of the translators who have been doing translation work, and I know that it has not been very easy, especially I think in old days where there was not much of an support at all, where there was not much at all any way to sort of learn Tibetan or learn Dharma than just going to India. And going to India with a backpack, with a very limited resource in one's wallet, and just following different teachers and living in a very poor conditions where Tibetan people themselves were living, and really giving themselves completely to the Dharma and giving themselves completely to study with the teachers like Dunju Rinpoche or Khensu Rinpoche or Awu Rinpoche or Dodu Rinpoche or many of the great masters, and going through a lot of hardships, physically, going through a lot of hardships, being used to the lifestyle here and then moving to India and living in very little comforts and very little accommodations whatsoever was present. And then also not being familiar with the food and not being also familiar with the ways of life there. And then also the culture differences. Much of the culture differences that was there, and trying to sort of bridge the two worlds and trying to immerse themselves fully into the Tibetan culture as a, not so much thinking of becoming a translator, but rather being interested in the Dharma and being very inspired to follow the great teachers that were available then there, and then become a practitioner themselves. And through a lot of your works, through a lot of your great endeavors, through a lot of your great hardships, that we now have the Buddha Dharma in the West as what we have. If it is not because of the translators of those generations, we wouldn't have the Buddha Dharma, at least the Tibetan Buddha Dharma in the West as what we have now. So I really pay my great respect to all the old translators that are present here. I can see many of you here, and I really am grateful for all of your work and for all of your benefit that you have brought to the Buddha Dharma in general, and particularly of the Nyingma and Kagyu tradition, and particularly of what you have done has paved a road for many of us to come to the West and be able to resume the work that you have already laid out, to continue to be able to benefit the Dharma and benefit the beings, and also to be able to teach. If it was not your work, or if it was not your endeavor, I don't know how much we would know how to even communicate any Dharma terminologies, or communicate how to sort of like bring forth a vision of transplanting the Buddha Dharma in the West. So I know I personally have been greatly benefited, and as well as also shaped by your vision and by your work. And then in general, so that's my the first point, to really express my great appreciation and gratefulness to all the old translators who have really done much of great work, not in an easy way, but in a hard, very sort of difficult ways. What you have achieved is immeasurable. Now, to continue from where we are now to in the future, we need younger translators. We need new translators. And I hope that the new translators and the younger translators also embody the same spirit of really serving the Dharma, serving the beings, and serving one's own lineage, and also being a practitioner of oneself, and being a practitioner of oneself, and one has this whole devotion to serving the Dharma, serving the beings, serving the lineage. And this devotion is a way of expressing one's own meaning of life. We can do anything, and we are maybe also capable of doing anything. By doing this or choosing this as one's path is an expression of one's devotion, as well as also seeing that this brings the most meaning in one's own individual life, and that this brings the most satisfaction to one's life. That this also is maybe a perhaps long time to come will affect many other beings in the future. So it would be not just only this time, not just only a short time, but it would be a continuously benefit for many, many, hopefully, centuries to come. So in this way, I hope that the new translators do take up the work or the profession, or are inspired to become a translator. But to do it in the old ways, how the Ani Jimba or how any of the old translators have done it, it is going to be very difficult. So therefore, I'm really grateful for this this meeting, to see how we can actually support, how we can actually make maybe somewhat of a collective effort to support the new younger generations of translators to rise in the world with the training, as well as also with the other means of support. Just the learning the language is one thing, but to become a translator, there has to be much of a knowledge of the Dharma and much of a training in the Dharma. And in order to sort of also have those two, you need to have the resource. And in order to sort of have the resource, you need to have some patrons. And without all of those, it is going to be very difficult to have a real good qualified translators to come up. Here and there, one or two, I'm sure definitely will come up, but many would be very difficult. So to have this kind of a meeting, talk about all of these things, what is in your agenda, is the only way that we can actually encourage the new translators to rise into the world and to be able to, really embody the spirit of becoming professional translators. So I appreciate for this meeting, and I appreciate for this effort, and I appreciate for what what is happening here, and I appreciate mostly for all of these great teachers, as well as also many of the old translators, to really be here to show their support in this way, because we can always easily isolate ourselves. We can always easily sort of think what I'm doing and what I'm doing and what others doing are what they're doing, and there's not much reasons to sort of come together. There's not much reasons to mingle, or there's not much reasons to kind of go our ways to do anything together. So here, just the people that I see here, just the effort that has been fruited here, is really a great sign of where we could go here. And also, I'm very grateful for Sangye Khandro and Chinam, and as well as also all of the people who are involved in arranging this to make it happen. So I want to also thank for this organization for what they're doing. And then third is, historically, if we think about it, in any great, other than noble land of India, where the Dharma has came from and went to Tibet, or went to China, went to Japan, went to Korea, or anywhere, who has done the most service to the country to bring the Dharma into that country? It's the translators. So in some ways, teachers do, of course, teach. And they are continuously going to be a great service to the Dharma. But the translators really do, even from my point of view, sometimes a greater service than the teachers do to bringing the Dharma into that country. And then working really closely with the teacher or on their own. Most of the time closely with the teacher, spending many, many days, many, many weeks, many, many months, word by word, on the text. And in this way we have Kanjurs translated into Tibetan from English, from Pali or Sanskrit, or Tenjurs translated, And in this way we have, from noble land of India to snow mountain of Tibet, we have the scriptural Dharma has been established. If it is not with the translators, like a Berotsana, even there were great teachers, like a Padmasambhava or Bimala Mitra, I think the transplantation of the Dharma in Tibet is not going to be complete. So translators like a Berotsana and the rest of the Tibetan translators have really completed the transplantation of the Dharma in Tibet, in the scriptural Dharma. Then, in the practice Dharma, if there is a scriptural Dharma translated in this way, there is going to be much, much hopeful for the realization Dharma to be really also slowly, slowly established. In just my recent years in America, I have come to realize that in order to really do some work in the establishing the Buddha Dharma in the West, when I first came here, there was not many texts translated. So if we want to do some teachings, it was very difficult, almost impossible. There was no really way to sort of teach them. Now, almost all the important philosophical texts are translated. So in our own small shed here, it is becoming much easier to do the teachings on the Vinaya, Abhidharma, so as also in the Prajna Paramita, so as also in the logics and reasons, in any of the 5 classical philosophical branch of the inner science of the Buddhist philosophy, it is becoming much easier. And it is because of the translations being available. Then also in the Tantrayana, also many of the great texts being translated. So it is getting easier to teach. The work of the teacher has almost become from 100% stress to almost like a 50% stress now. 50% stress has been remedied. Now, if there's that kind of a study, then we have retreat centers. We have people doing retreats, 3-year retreats all over Europe, as well as also in America, and also in Brazil and different places. So I think there's going to be a good chance of realization Dharma to be also established. And if these two are established, and then we have some real Panditas come as a result of that in the scriptural Dharma, and real Mahasiddhas to come as a result of the realization Dharma, then Buddha Dharma is established for this generation or for the next generation. Whenever that happens, Buddha Dharma is established. And then it's a question of how long it remains that way, how long it continues that way. As far as starting, as far as it's being established, both the Lung and the Tokpa Dharma is being established, and from the Lung, some Panditas of the Nangdung Rigpa, the inner science, and then some Truptops from the Tokpi Dharma, from the realization Dharma as being produced. Then the Buddha Dharma is fully established. And much of our sort of like our own personal small efforts or great efforts or individual as well as a collective effort has been put into this, really has bear fruit. And there is not going to be anything compared to that as far as the meritorial works of that. I don't think there is going to be anything compared to that as far as the meritorial works of that. And there's going to be nothing compared to that personally one can actually find a meaning and a greater satisfaction. I don't think there's going to be anything that is going to be valuable to leave behind in this world and then move on with one's life from this world to the next. There's nothing going to be much greater than that. So in this way, it is all nothing shorter than enlightenment itself, what the translators are doing as a work, going to be anything in comparison to anything else. So that's my view, and I apologize if I misspoken on anything or exaggerated on anything. I might have a little bit. But I do really believe in this. And so I want to really thank you all and thank the great teachers for their great kindness and great support, as well as also so many of the organization aspect of this, what has gone into it. So thank you for the organizers, and thank you all very much.
If anyone would like to ask a question, Rinpoche, please feel free.
Yes, please do.
Thank you very much for what you said. And I'm only a baby translator, but what I'm trying to do is I'm working with some of the schools and monasteries in India. And there's a problem in that in some of them, their own program of study, especially for Gelugpas, is so intense for the young people. And then in the modern day, they're also trying to learn some English and a little bit about the world about them, and in addition to these huge Dharma studies, which of course they need. But after a certain point, when they get a little older, I've been trying to encourage more English Dharma language rather than just shopping in the market English. And it's been a little bit hard, both in terms of getting resources to them and in working with the older authorities who are doing their job to keep a good Buddha Dharma education going, and adding one extra piece to it often just seems more time than anybody has. And it may be different in different lineages, but one thing that I would also interested in your reaction to and support from this whole group is working together with young Tibetans or Ladakis or whoever they might be in India and in their native places to come together, to have them learn Dharma English while we're learning to translate, so that we have this team from both sides. So I'm also interested in throwing that into the mix of things that would be great maybe to work on, and I want to know what your experience is.
I totally agree with you. I think it is going to be very helpful for young Tibetan monks or nuns to learn English in general, and particularly I think learning some Dharma vocabularies, so that as they grow up, they have the Dharma knowledge already and training already, that they then are also much ready to be able to either help translator or either teach themselves in the English language with the Dharma vocabularies already being in their hand. And I met a monk who is a translator, and he made this small English book for young Tibetan monks and nuns to learn English, and it's mainly based on a Dharma curriculum, Dharma terminology, and I thought that was really great. And if any furthermore those kind of small booklets could be produced, so if they can just learn the English language as well as the Dharma terminology, it is very helpful. Personally, for me, English language is very helpful to have in the side to know some things about meaning of one particular word. You could know the meaning of that from Tibetan word itself, but then to have the English meaning of that word, because English word is very experiential, and very emotional. So it's very helpful sometimes to have that English meaning of the word, which is quite experiential and quite emotional, to sort of know further depth of that meaning of the word, which I might have some understanding of it from the Tibetan. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could comment on the process of practicing in English as opposed to Tibetan. I've had experience both in practicing in English and also in Tibetan, and then also in Tibetan with English beside it. And it seems like there are different styles, mostly. A lot of still people want to refer to the Tibetan and perhaps practice in the Tibetan. And yet the implication of your talk is that English should become a totally adequate representation for an enlightened mind if the translation project succeeds. So I wonder if you could comment on perhaps your own experience, your own preferences, and where you think this should go and how quick this transition, or whether it should be a transition, whether we should always keep the Tibetan available, that sort of question.
My personal feeling in that is that in practicing one of the most important aspect of the practicing is to understand what you're doing. And in order to understand what you're doing, if you have the language in your own to understand, it would be much easier and much simpler to understand. So in the long run, I think if everything can be in English, I'm in favor of that in the long run. But for now, what I actually personally try to emphasize with a few of the students that follow me is that if it is, any general practices, we have it in English for them to, read and understand, and as well as process through their experience. Now, this is, I think, of course, unique to the future of the Nyingma tradition. We have the Dharma circle here. And with the Dharma circle, I didn't feel very comfortable, to sort of erase the whole, the culture of the, Dharma tradition, which was discovered in Tibet, in language. And then also go away with all the rituals and the tunes and all of the kind of like melodies and so forth, and then just do it in English. Do it in English. So I kept it in Tibetan, and I encouraged them to do it in Tibetan and get trained in Tibetan, the phonetic Tibetan, and then also study the meaning of that. Study the meaning of that, and since it is done not very fast, it's done slowly, hopefully they can comprehend both at the same time, you know. And also there has to be a lot of teachings on top of it to be able to know what one is doing. So I kept it in Tibetan, and it's just because it's the Terma tradition, and because you know it's very hard to go away with the tunes and the melodies and the whole sort of atmosphere that it brings, and also a lot of the kind of rituals aspects that is involved in there. To do away with all of them was very difficult for me. So we do both. Like for instance, if we are doing a recollection of the 3 jewels, we do it in English, you know. But if we're doing our sadhana, we do it in, you know, a Longchen English sadhana like a Rinzin Dupa or something, we do it in Tibetan. And so if we're doing again a dedication of merit, we do it in English. So we have the both mixture. So what would be ultimately best? You know, my heart says that if it is all in English, it would be good. But just this one thing with the circle of the treasures, I find it difficult to kind of do away with all of those blessings. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Rinpoche, it seems that there is a limited amount of time in which we can work together to translate Tibetan texts into English, and that there's some sense of urgency to this project of translating the Buddhist text into English. There's some view that maybe we won't have for a long, long time many experts, native language speakers of Tibetan who can guide these translations and see them through to correct completion. Mm-hmm. Since that seems to be the case, I'd like to ask you to speak to us about what your sense of priority is.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this. This is something I've been thinking. Mainly to be able to establish a Shebide and Dupide, you know. This is going to be the most important thing. The rest of the Kanjur and the Tenjur, you know, could take time, right? And it's going to be many generations work. But in each lineage, the Shebide and the Dupide, right? Like in the Nyingma, the 13 classical texts of the Khenchen Zhenga is very important for the Shebide. And on top of it, Zödun of the Longchenpa, I think is very important, right? And then also like Goa Garba or something like that in the Tantra, I think it's very important. So if that is established, and then all of the, in the Dupide, in the practice circle, all of the sadhanas of the, from the Nundo to all of the 3 roots sadhanas being translated, as well as also then some of the we call the Anuyoga practice being translated, and then Adi Yoga being translated in the Nyingma. I think that is the essential, so that then, you know, someone can have a full education in the Shebide and the Dupide, and then do well in the Sheda time as well as in the Dupra time. And I'm sure that is the same thing with the different lineages. Yeah. In the Nyingma and Kagyu, I think 13 is going to be same in the Sutrayana, and then when it comes to Mantrayana, then maybe Nangpa Jusum would be more important, right? And then also the practice circles. Yes, please do.
Rinpoche, given that our kind of cultural environment and situation is so different now compared to when Buddhism was being transmitted to Tibet, what do you think the ideal is in terms of how a translator should work with a Khenpo or a Lama or a lineage holder? And especially when it comes to very, I mean, of course the Dharma is entirely profound, but teachings like Mahamudra and Dzogchen, where there's a very special transmission taking place.
I think it is very important to work with the teacher, not for a translator, but for all of us to work with the teacher. As Atisha said, until you attain enlightenment, work with the spiritual friends, right? So I think it is very important. And so without any, exception, I think working with the teachers is very important. But somehow if one feels one is capable of doing that, so on one's own, still I think it is very helpful to have checked in with the teacher and maybe confirmed by a teacher or a Khenpo or someone who knows the material. I think that is helpful. And in all of this, this time, we have 8 worldly concerns, and then we have a bodhicitta to work with. If we go towards the 8 worldly concerns, the material is not going to be, however it's professionally done, bring that much of a benefit to the mass and really be able to penetrate in the hearts of many who have a connection to Buddha Dharma. But if we go with the bodhicitta, with a pure intention to really serve the Dharma, serve the beings, and also truly sort of do this as in a sort of seeking ways and means to bring a meaning to one's own life through this service, I think it is going to have a much profound reach and a tremendous, effectiveness to penetrate in the hearts of many. So, if we all agree that that is the best, then I don't think there should be any problem to work with a teacher or a Khenpo or anyone, who may have some, ways to sort of improve or at least confirm.
Thank you for addressing us, Rinpoche. We've been talking a lot together this morning, and I have a sense that you've been watching us for many years, as you talked about. And do you have any sense of direction for this community of translators, how we go forward together? And in particular, if you see any strengths that we have or weaknesses?
I think the strength is that you all, especially the old generations, are practitioners. Really has this heart to practice the Dharma for one's own kind of like knowledge and for one's own realization. That is the strength. The weakness of the old translators, they are all little mavericks, and so to try to come together is going to be a very unique and a very much somewhat of against their kind of like usual habits, So I think what is happening here is really a wonderful thing, and more things like this, I think, would sort of reform the maverick attitude to a more of a real just sort of working together as in a group to aim to benefit something larger than oneself and larger than one's small field of contributions.
Rinpoche, one of those reasons why the Tibetan Buddhism is so effective and so quick is because it was handed over in an uninterrupted lineage from Vajradhara up to today. And now, due to being translated into English or other Western languages, it happens that you can get any book bought in any bookstore without having transmission. So my question is, what would you propose how to continue this transmission, either through empowerments or through reading transmissions like Lung? In this, when you propose everything should be translated into English.
Well,
I myself, I heard that the Karmapa was giving a Lung in English on a Khandro. I don't know whether that was true, but somebody told me he read the Lung in English. Maybe he started a new tradition. So what is your opinion about that?
well, in Tibetan language, there's all the Mahamudra texts and the Dzogchen texts available for anyone to buy. But in the Tibetan culture, particularly in the Tibetan practitioners' culture, you need to receive the empowerment, you need to receive the transmission, you need to receive the teachings on them. What once Gyoshu Rinpoche have said to me that was really striking and resonated with me is that if it was not being able to introduce through a master with an experience, showing what that experience is to the disciple, and the disciple sort of receiving that experience, as well as confirmation from the master that this is the experience. You could have all of those texts exist, but they wouldn't really do much personally to transform one's mind or mature one's mind or liberate one's mind. And that really stayed with me. So I think it has to be the same. As far as the translating, there's no really a danger, I think. Having it available, I don't think there is not much danger. But if somebody wants to really have this as a sort of to benefit oneself, to mature one's mind, or to liberate one's mind, there needs to be empowerment and teachings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.